Hey everybody, it's KennedyHawk from the MCM team, and we're going to continue our Hero Primer series, rounding out the core set, this time talking about Iron Man, aka Tony Stark. So let's get underway. So, Iron Man has a really interesting identity hook. In Tony Stark Ultra Ego form, he has 3 recover with the Futurist ability, which is super thematic. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck and add 1 to your hand, discard the others. Classic Tony Stark, grab something good for you, get closer to an encounter card, because who cares, that's someone else's problem. Hand size of 6 with 9 hit points, pretty standard for an Alter Ego form. The cool part comes in his hero form, where he's got Tooth Wart, 1 attack, and 1 defense. Kind of medium stat line other than the Tooth Wart, which is pretty good. You get +1 hand size for each tech upgrade you control to a maximum hand size of 7. And he has a hand size of 1 with hit points of 9. That is awesome. So you can jump to a 7 hand size in hero form. The problem is it's going to take you a while to get there. You have to get a lot of tech upgrades down. So that brings us to Tony's main hook, which is he's risk-reward themed, sort of like She-Hulk, where she's focusing on this risk-reward of taking damage and being at low HP. His risk-reward is he has to sit around in alter ego form, letting the villain place a bunch of threat in the main scheme, and then come in dramatically to save the day and remove all that threat. And it is super fun to play him that way. He is thematic to the max. I like to play with his tech upgrades sort of spread out on whatever character is on my mat, like I have here. He's obviously got 7 tech upgrades, so you've only got to get 6 into play to reach that maximum hand size. And he has a super strong final form, which is kind of his shtick here. So he's got a ton of key cards in his kit. There are a lot of really good cards in Iron Man's kit. These are the key cards I've found most recently when I'm playing Iron Man. I love his powered gauntlets. They're basically little attacks that deal 1 damage or 2 damage if you have the aerial trait. Great for triggering Yarnbjorn, great for knocking off Tough and stuff like that. We've got Mark 5 armor that gives him +6 HP, and a pair of rocket boots that give him +1 HP, and the ability to go aerial. Now the trick here is you probably only want to play one of those rocket boots. I only have one shown here. Arc Reactor, definitely his best tech upgrade in my opinion, is a hero action exhaust it to ready Iron Man, so you can use your Tooth Wart twice. And you're going to have to make very good use of your Futurist ability to get all these tech upgrades down onto the board. My favorite attack event from Iron Man is Supersonic Punch. It's a 2-cost event that deals 4 to an enemy, or 8 if you have the aerial trait, and 2 for 8 is a really good ratio. I mean, it's basically a swinging web kick for 1 cheaper. In his kit, you have to pay to get aerial, so it becomes a swinging web kick, but if you have multiples of them, you kind of get a discount, which is pretty cool. His vanilla cards, some people might fight me on this, but these are what I feel like are his kind of bland cards. I'll play them if I have the resources, but they don't always pay themselves off. So Mark 5 Helmet, this is great in multiplayer. Exhaust Mark 5 Helmet, remove 1 threat from a scheme, or 1 from each scheme if you have the aerial trait. A lot of times in solo, there aren't more than 1 scheme out there, so this is kind of a niche card. It works against certain scenarios. It's not always the first tech upgrade I play. On the flip side, it's real cheap, and it increases his hand size, so you're never going to be sad to draw it, but it doesn't always have the biggest impact on the game. Stark Tower, another card. Once you're in that 7 hand size hero form, you basically never want to flip down unless you have to as Tony Stark. So Stark Tower is great for setup. You can exhaust it to choose a player, have them return a tech upgrade from their discard pile to their hand, the topmost tech upgrade. That's really strong when you're spending tech upgrades to play other tech upgrades, but it's not, the best strategy all the time, because once you flip the hero form, you're not using it anymore. Pepper Pots is a resource generator. You can exhaust her to generate the resources of the top card of your discard pile. This can be really strong when generating double resources like Genius, Strength, and Energy. It's unfortunately not so strong when you're just generating whatever the card on the top of your discard pile is, right? Captain America comes with Super Soldier Serum, which is 1 cheaper and makes the resource he wants all the time. So while this is a very good card and a very strong card for helping you ramp up and does help you in the end of the game, often it's kind of, overshadowed by other hero resource generators, in my opinion. All right, now we're on to the trap cards. You almost never need to play that second Rocket Boots. There are exceptions where you might want to. Maybe you're playing a Repulsor Blast deck and you want to get all those mentals out of your deck, but typically I use the Rocket Boots to fuel the other Rocket Boots. So I have 1 cycling through my deck to give me aerial because it has that mental resource. Repulsor Blast. This was a hard one to put here. I love Repulsor Blast decks. They are super fun. You cram your deck with energy resources, deal 1 damage to an enemy, discard the top 5 cards of your deck for each printed energy resource discarded, deal 2 additional damage. So this could be up to 13 if you hit 4 energy resources and an energy resource, the actual card. That's crazy. 13 damage for 1 is really strong, but you are severely limiting your deck building. So if you're starting out with Iron Man and trying to learn how to play, this might be a really good strategy. But I'm kind of at the point where now I don't like to necessarily base my entire deck around Repulsor Blast. Sometimes there's added negative effects to this. You're getting to encounter cards faster and all sorts of things like that. Whereas Supersonic Punch, right, I'm paying 2 and I know I'm getting 8 if I have aerial. Here I'm paying 1. Sometimes I get 13, sometimes I get 1, and that would really stink. Probably means I didn't build a great deck for Repulsor Blast, but it happens. And then War Machine. War Machine he's the worst signature ally, hands down. He's only good because there is a basic team-up card now that helps Iron Man, but he's still a really bad card. 4 cost for AoE damage, but he deals himself damage to do that AoE. I mean, he's great because he's an ally, but he's nothing special. Alright, so the hero overview. His weakness is setup time. His ceiling isn't capped, but it's close to capped. Kind of once you're in your final form, your aspect cards might impact you a little bit, what order you play your events in, but he's kind of got this final form that leaves little wiggle room once you're there. His strengths, he has that really powerful final form, so once you get there, you're pretty much set up and ready to win. He has aerial and tech synergy, which is super fun, and he solves his own problem. So his main problem is that he places a bunch of threat during setup, and he can solve that with really strong thwarting. Alright, on to our aspect primer. So I tried to limit myself in cards here so we can get closer to time. Generally, cards with energy resources are really good for Iron Man, but in aggression, you might want to run something like Yarnbjorn. After your hero attacks, spend a physical resource to do 2 damage to an enemy, so now your gauntlets could be deal 2, pay a fist to deal another 2, and you can spread a ton of damage all around. Hand Cannon has more tech traits in your deck that leads to faster hand size increase. We love that. Plan of Attack, I kind of use like assess the situation in his deck. It's not really passing a card to the next turn, but it's letting me look at those top cards when I'm sitting in Alter Ego form, grab attack events and use them as resources, meaning I draw into more tech cards faster. 2 attack events I have here Into the Fray and Relentless Assault. They're both very strong at helping us take care of minions. They both provide an energy resource if you go that Repulsor Blast route. And then I have Moment of Triumph in here. I think this is a really good card for Tony because you never want to flip down and use that 3 recover once you're at that 16, 17 hit points. But you don't want to be dwindling down to 2 or 3 and in danger of dying. So Moment of Triumph is a way you can use your Supersonic Punch or your Repulsor Blast, hit a weenie Ultron drone and heal for 12 so you don't have to flip for the rest of the game, which is really, really strong. Alright, Justice, probably one of his strongest aspects. We have Heroic Intuition to get him up to 3 thwart with that auto ready. We have Sonic Rifle, more tech upgrades. Basically anything that lets us help with thwart, like counterintelligence and foiled while we're in Alter Ego form, is going to help us, pay our penance for playing Iron Man. I think Yawn Roll is really strong with him because you're generally going to be using your base attack for thwarting. So after your hero thwarts, remove 3 threat from a scheme can be very, very strong. You could use the attacking one in aggression. I didn't mention it with your gauntlets, but I tend to not include it just because of the physical resource. For Justice, classic card from the core set that relies on the energy trait, but also the mental trait, so it's going to tie into your aerial decks. And I think one way or another is a really good card for him from Nebula's pack, because it allows him to pull out that second side scheme to take advantage of his helmet, and generally he can take care of that side scheme and gain a lot from that card draw. Alright, into leadership. Okay, this is basically the same slide from Captain Marvel. Iron Man, just like everyone else, works really well when you spam the board with allies and play strength in numbers. But cards like Mighty Avengers and Avengers Assemble can get him up to 3 to 4 thwart, which is really strong. Even Moxie, right? If you're going to play a flipping Iron Man deck, which I haven't done very often, but I have recently, you can use Futurist to go find that Moxie, so it's a little bit more consistent. And then you can use Moxie when you flip up to get to 3 thwart, thwart twice, maybe defend with your 2 defense, and then flip back down and rinse and repeat. Pretty fun. So other leadership cards that work with him, Air Supremacy from Star-Lord's kit. You're going to be going aerial a lot, so you can deal a lot of AoE damage if you include aerial allies as well. We've got White Tiger for drawing more cards from Mad Titan's Shadow. And then we've got Power Gloves and Reinforced Suit, 2 tech upgrades that you can play on allies from Ant-Man, and then Gamora and Star-Lord. Now those 2 are limited to Guardian allies, and Power Gloves is limited to Avengers allies. So it's going to dictate what allies you include in your deck, but it definitely sort of boost starts your hand size increase. Alright, Protection. A lot of people love Protection with Iron Man, and I am no different. I think Energy Barrier and Nova are 2 of his staples, tech upgrade, and something all about the energy resource reflecting damage back at the villain. Electrostatic Armor is another tech upgrade you could include, and I like to include things like Sidestep and Defiance that sort of reduce damage without me having to use my defense stat. I think those are really strong for Iron Man. Basic cards. Earth's Mightiest Heroes, you've got 2 thwart, you're going to love it. If you get to 3 thwart from Heroic Intuition or something like that, Earth's Mightiest Heroes just becomes bonkers broken. We have Plasma Pistol. I struggled to put this on here because I still think it's kind of a trap card. I've heard people say, yeah, you can use this to remove ping damage, but you've already got your gauntlets and you'd rather play those. That being said, you're not using your restricted slots, so Plasma Pistol can't hurt you. It's going to thin your deck and give you more tech, which is always good. We've got endurance. I think it's okay to include 3 endurances in your deck if you're going the repulsor blast route, and it increases that HP, so you don't have to flip down. And then obviously Quinn Carrier, free aerial every turn, doesn't hurt. Theme for Iron Man. We went way over today, folks. Sorry. Iron Man has been around since 1962's Tales of Suspense number 39. He headlines the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or he used to at least, where they trade sort of his comic book fault of alcoholism for narcissism and sort of his obsession with having him be the person to fix everything. At this point in the comics, the MCU adaptation and the comic adaptation, they've kind of merged around the MCU identity, and comic book Tony Stark is very much like the MCU Tony Stark that we've all seen in the movies. He's a character just like that in the Marvel Champions as well. He likes to sort of build his suit of armor and then be the savior that saves the day, very much like his comic book counterpart. So on to our rating scale. Let's get right to it. For power level, I have him at a 4. I'm not saying that he is not super powerful in his final form. I kind of like when characters, they have this Goldilocks effect. You can't be too weak, you can't be too strong, and then you get a 5. And he was like right at the edge of almost getting a 5. I think he is a very well-designed character that is very powerful in his final form. But some of the newer characters are a little bit more powerful without being overpowered. So I put him in there at a 4. For decision making, Iron Man is definitely a 5. You have a super pivotal decision as Iron Man, and that makes playing him super fun. You have to decide when you're going to flip and how much problems you're going to cause for yourself or your team. And that's a really interesting decision. I've played many games where I flip on turn 2, maybe when I only have a hand size of 3 or 4, and then I dip back down one more time to use Futurist. Sometimes you just got to do it for your team. So I really, really like the decision-making in Iron Man. Also the decision-making of sequencing of how am I going to go aerial, what am I going to spend to go aerial, what order am I going to play these events in, so I have 5 cards for my Repulsor Blast. Really fun and rewarding decision-making in Iron Man. Aspect viability, he is a 5. He has a great deck in every aspect. He has multiple decks in leadership, I think multiple decks in justice, and probably multiple decks in aggression at this point. So I think that he has very strong aspect synergy with all 4 aspects, and even with a just basic deck. So definitely a 5 out of 5 there. Thematics, he's my first character that I'm giving a 5. I feel like they have nailed Tony Stark, at least Marvel Cinematic Universe Tony Stark, which is probably the one most people are familiar with. And I think that's what they're going for here, is to really lean into the MCU and Tony's, ability to only think about himself or put himself higher. I mean, obviously at the end of his character arc, that is not the attitude he has anymore. But he definitely feels like that person that needs to come in and save the day. And so does the Marvel Champions counterpart. So I love that. I think they just knocked it out of the park with thematics for Tony, in my opinion. Fun factor, I've got him at a 5. He is not my favorite character from the core set. I already told you all who those characters were, but he is definitely the character that when I'm playing with new players, or even with experienced players, when they're playing him, they are always smiling. They are always having fun. They're always sort of, the deck plays itself very smoothly. It gives you a little bit of tension up front, but then it smooths out and you feel like you're really contributing. So I think that Iron Man is definitely a 5 out of 5 in fun factor, giving him a 4.8 overall, our highest rated hero from the core set. So, thanks for watching. We made it through the core set, so we're going to continue on with hero packs, starting with Captain America and Miss Marvel. So let me know in the comments below, what is your favorite deck with Iron Man? What aspect does Tony pair best with? And what new cards are you most excited about? Probably a lot of those aerial cards from Nova's kit, but there's a lot of other new cards that I think could make Iron Man super exciting. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great weekend.